Hi, everyone. Welcome to the panel on purpose-driven marketing. So to start, I'll just ask the panelists to introduce themselves. Why don't we start with Sophia?
Oh, hi. My name is Sophia Aladinoye. I am a strategic marketing consultant running my own business called the Ide Group, and one of my clients is Hallmark Mahogany. And so I've been working with Alexis for, over almost 2 years now, really focused on turning Hallmark Mahogany into an omni-channel lifestyle brand.
Alexis Kerr, Vice President of Hallmark Mahogany, which is a sub-brand which caters to the African American community, giving voice to all of the things that are impacting him and her, the family. And it's been around for about 37 years. And I'm excited also because we're part of Hallmark Core, which is similar to Clorox, has been around for over 100 years. And so I'm excited to be sharing today and to talk from a framework of iconic brands and the ways in which we connect in a purposeful way with community.
Hello, everyone. Sheri, Barros, Vice President of Global Sports Alliances for the American Cancer Society. Like Hallmark, very much a legacy brand, over 100 years. We're a nonprofit brand, so obviously purpose is woven into the fabric of who we are as an organization. So look forward to the discussion.
Thank you. And I'm Will Burghes. I'm the head of marketing science for Argo. We're a full-service advertising agency in New York and San Francisco. So let's start with you, Sheri. At the highest level, can you just tell us how you think about purpose in everything that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, again, we're a nonprofit. So purpose is the fabric of everything that we do at the American Cancer Society. Our vision is to end cancer as we know it for everyone. And that doesn't happen without a focus on every cancer and every life. So we take what we do obviously very seriously, and we're leveraging partnerships as a key aspect and component of being able to raise funds for the mission. So my team and my group sits in our corporate partnerships division, and we oversee all of our sports partnership verticals with major sports leagues and teams and players and such. So really harnessing the power of sport to help, in the fight against cancer. And in terms of how we view purpose, again, we're so fortunate that we have partners that are as committed to the mission as we are. We very much see it as a lofty goal, obviously, when you're talking about cancer, but we've made so many strides, and we're directly connecting that, which we can talk about, to where the funds that are raised are going and the impact that that's making.
Great, I'm excited. And when we think about purpose from a perspective of Hallmark, it is about how do we put more care in the world. That is what Hallmark is about at its core, simplistically stated. But when we think about Hallmark Mahogany, it is how can we put more care in the world as it relates to Black and brown people? How can we, in times of civil unrest, really speak to the pain and the power and the things that they're experiencing in the world? And when you think about a card or a gift, it is not just the voice that I'm sharing when I give a gift to you, but also the voice that you're receiving, and understanding what's happening in our ecosystem and how to properly provide that voice is really what we're doing. And as we think about purpose and intention, I think the beautiful thing about Hallmark Mahogany is that it's an iconic brand that, again, has been around for 37 years, but we've been serving all Black and brown communities. As we think about our consumers, they are not all African American, but the voice is rooted in that community, but the issues that we're talking about are ones that are impacting everyone. And so our consumer base is a lot more broader, which was exciting, and the ways in which we engage with her. We call our consumer her, because over 85% of our consumers are females. The ways in which we engage with her are very authentic to the things that she's going through. So purpose is definitely part of why I'm here. I've been here for now just under 2 years, but also how we engage with community. Purpose is a huge part of that.
I don't really know. Got it.
Fantastic. So let's just think back over the last 2 years really quickly. We had the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. We've had a global pandemic. It's been a turbulent 2 years for everybody. How has that changed your approach? And maybe Alexis, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it has done a lot. At the time of the Black Lives Matter movement, I was leading multicultural marketing at Cadillac. Phenomenal job, phenomenal position. But I think the bigger thing was that it gave me an opportunity to speak to what was happening in culture, like really speak from an authentic place. And so when we think about purpose-driven marketing, I think we have to be mindful that we don't call it a dirty word. You know, it is great if a brand is walking and talking and moving in a purpose and they connect with the community genuinely in the midst of what may be happening, the pain of what's happening in the world. And so as I transitioned over to Hallmark, again, another legacy company, the amazing thing is that I get to connect more deeply and more intentional with Black and brown communities in all of the things that have not just transpired in the past, but all of the things that will come. And so as marketers, as just people going through life over the last 5 years, so many different things have happened in life that we never thought could happen. And so as marketers, we just anticipate that there will be more. And what I'm working to do with the Mahogany team, with the amazing help of Sophia, is make sure that Black and brown people know that we are here, we're here to stay, and we're going to consistently serve their needs as they evolve. I think the evolution of what our needs are really what great marketers are doing. We're creating new products that serve their needs. And so as the lady from Clorox spoke, I think it was great to just say we launched our direct-to-consumer as well at mahogany.com. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but I think it is, as our consumer needs are evolving, we evolve too, to really serve them in a more unique way.
And I think just adding to that, so much of what came out, particularly during that time period, wasn't just about purpose in the sense of from a macro level that's kind of intangible. It was actually very tangible in the sense of a huge amplification for many underrepresented communities that these communities are buying. They're buying things that make sense to them, that are relevant, that are nuanced. And so to Alexis's point, right, part of what came out of that was the birth of Mahogany.com, right? And being able to connect with her from an omni-channel perspective. She's shopping in brick and mortar. She's also shopping online. But also what was happening during that time and continues to happen, you had like the 15% pledge and all these other things. And what you've seen is a massive increase in all of these Black and brown owned businesses that exist in the world that were always there. It's just more about raising visibility. And so it's really, and we're just continuing to see that just for myself, even as just a consultant, in the space across the board for more and more brands where it's like, well, how do we talk to all of these communities and engage with these communities in far more nuanced ways that feel real and honest and impactful, because the thing is, they're shopping. So you might as well figure out how to talk to them.
And I would just piggyback off of that just to say that obviously 2020 was an inflection point, but purpose didn't start with 2020. It was going on long before, and in order for it to be effective and authentic, it has to go on long after. So I think one of the things we're very aware of as a nonprofit is that the Black Lives Matter, social justice, pandemic, health issues that arose in 2020 are issues we've been aware of for years and that we've been working through for years. So I mentioned our mission to end cancer as we know it for everyone. We know that we can't do that unless we ensure that everyone has a fair and just opportunity to find, treat, prevent, and survive cancer. So prior to the pandemic, we recognized disparities in health care. Again, Black Lives Matter was about initially the issues in criminal justice, but those issues transcend into education, transcend into health care. And so it was an opportunity for us to actually get more attention for the work that we've been doing for years, because it's something we've been shouting to the rooftops in terms of disparity and survival rate in cancer when it comes to Black and brown and underserved communities. And it's actually one of the initial and main objectives of our partnership with the National Football League. It funds cancer screenings in underserved communities because there is a almost 40% lower survival rate for African American women when it relates to breast cancer, lower survival rates across the board when we look at multiple multiple cancers. So we really took that opportunity to, allow our voice to be heard and to raise our voice with our partners and say, yes, we recognize this. We've been working on this. Let's lean into it. Let's commit to it. Let's not make it just a one-time thing in 2020, but it has to be sustainable in the long term.
Yeah, that's a great point. So clearly you're very aware of all the data surrounding your business and who you're trying to serve. I think as purpose-driven marketers, we all know that purpose-driven marketing is much more effective than marketing that is not. But how do you go about proving that effectiveness to your stakeholders?
So I'll start. Obviously for us, we're a healthcare organization, so data is paramount. I have the fortune of working with oncologists and scientists and those that are constructing these programs for impact. So we're looking at it from a marketing perspective in terms of how we're going about consumer fundraising and purpose-driven, programs and marketing campaigns, but then we're also translating it back to the impact. So again, I'll go to the National Football League as an example. Every new season that we start with the NFL, it starts with an infographic of how many hundreds of thousands of people have been screened, how many cancer diagnoses have been discovered, how many, over 1.3 million patients that have been reached through the program, percentages of screening rates that have gone up in some of these areas once they've gotten NFL funding that our health team has tracked. So there's quantitative research, but then also there's qualitative, right? So a lot of the content that we do when we're doing stories on those that have been impacted is hearing from those voices that have been impacted, and that's something that's, immeasurable when you've saved a life, when you've helped to save a life. So, we're looking at quantitative and qualitative when it comes to data, both on the marketing side and then on the impact side.
So much of what we do for Hallmark Mahogany, and I just personally believe in, is you have to have data. Shooting in the dark is a lovely thing. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But without the data, it is very, very difficult to not only do the work that you have to do right now, but to your point, be able to do it over and over and over again. Because it's too easy for people to go, oh, you don't have any data. And it's like, actually, we do. And so for Hallmark Mahogany, we have done research, qualitative and quantitative, last year, as well as have continued to do research this year, just really making sure that we're leaning into this consumer, especially as we've been evolving the brand itself, to really continue to have pulses and check-ins and see, is she responding to this? Does she like this? Even down to products and the types of products that we were thinking about, pricing, all of the different things. What are the things that she's interested in? We actually have research that just went out and we're reviewing it right now, and we've got some more research that's probably going out before the end of this year, just to really get some more insights. At Hallmark, holiday is the massive Super Bowl for Hallmark, but we want to make sure that we're really having insights into how she's engaging with Hallmark Mahogany around the holiday season, because that all, then informs how we continue to engage with her from a community standpoint. And it's not just, even if it's validating some of the things that we kind of have a sense of from a hypothesis standpoint, having that data affirms for us we're moving in the right direction, or if we need to make a pivot. And it just gives us a phenomenal foundation. And also, what we're also leveraging it to do is not just necessarily just help the brand itself, but even when we're working with agency partners as well as internal partners at Hallmark, giving them the insights, so then that way, from a product development standpoint, from a how do we want to talk to them and engage with them at brick and mortar with our retail partners, all of it then helps to spread forward, so that way we can continue to engage her holistically, because she's not thinking mahogany.com or mahogany, at Walmart. She's thinking Mahogany. And so being able to engage with her effectively and cohesively from a holistic standpoint is really key, and that's where the data comes in.
Yeah, and I think just to add on what Sophia said, we're using the power of storytelling in our internal relationships as we share out that data, but we're also using the power of storytelling as we think about the ways in which we're engaging community. And so, when I just heard you talk about those stats, it just, brought to me the ways in which we used to do business and we used to engage with just the data. Now we're taking that and saying, okay, how are we leveraging influencers? How are we helping give them the right tools to tell the story? What are the other ways in which we can engage with a younger audience, whether it be TikTok or XYZ? What are the ways in which we're providing these tools and not just saying, hey, the data said this, but it's almost what are the analytics behind it, and what are we going to do? And so now we're evolving into not just being data. I think anybody can get you good data, but not a lot of people can analyze that to make it actionable for you to take things to the next level. And so we find ourselves pretty much on a quarterly basis looking at the new research and saying, because of this, now we're going to go do that. And I think that's the ways in which we've been iterating and moving us forward a lot faster. We're small, nimble, mighty team, but as we think about what are the more ways that we can push forward faster, it tends to be in that iteration and making sure we have someone who's given us the insights and analytics from that data so that we can really take action.
So you've obviously done a tremendous amount of research around your consumer and what she needs, but every brand has multiple groups of stakeholders. So you have your customers, but you also have, at the minimum, your employees and probably others. So how do you think about taking that core purpose of your brand and translating it in different ways so that it speaks to different people in different ways?
Yeah, I think, if we think about the ways in which we do business today, one, our first customers we have to serve are our internal employees at Hallmark. Our internal employees, our contractors. When we talk about contractors, they're our Mahogany writers in our writing community. They are telling stories on Mahogany.com and connecting with our consumers. So they have to feel like they're part of the brand. We get them, we know them, we understand them, and we're finding creative ways to tell their stories. But then internal employees, as we think across, because Hallmark owns Dayspring, the Christian brand. Hallmark owns Hallmark Media, which is the Hallmark channels, Hallmark Mysteries, all of those Hallmark core channels. Also own Crayola with a large line of products there. And so, when you talk about the Hallmark company, the Halls, our founders, it is in every piece, starting with our internal employees, that we're making sure they're okay. There's a Hallmark Mahogany card that says it's okay to say that you're not okay. And so, when we think about all of the things impacting our consumers, impacting our employees, we are the Mahogany team, but we're also the ones who are impacted by what's happening in culture. So we try to serve them first as in our employees. It's like when you're on a plane, put your face mask on first and then take action. And so we make sure we've got internal, teams and work groups. We started the Mahogany Melanated Millennials, where we heard from the younger people during the height of COVID to, give them a voice to an executive so we could start to make changes. Impacted our social in a phenomenal way. Like, we doubled our social growth with some of the incredible ideas. And then externally, as we think about our consumers, the biggest thing that we heard from people when I started was, we can't find Mahogany cards. I'm driving 20 miles to a store. I love your brand. It's not at my CVS. It's not at my Walgreens. It's not at my Dollar Tree. So we said, hey, direct to consumer, Mahogany.com. We have every single thing you need. Storytelling with our writers. We have commercials with our TV, so when our shows are on, our new Mahogany movies are on. We've got a podcast coming next year, but it is this one-stop shop, all of your holiday products, gifts, and more. So we heard, again, hearing the data, hearing the customer insights, because we're out here talking to them, but then taking action, and I think it's that taking action that's essential.
One thing I'd just add to that, when you mention internal, when you talk about DEI, right, and you have to be able to look inward inside your organization if you are outwardly promoting the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and making sure that's reflected, right, in your customer base. So that's certainly huge. I just want to add the perspective of partnership marketing. Our partners are our customers, very much so. When you're looking at partnering with corporations and brands, we've actually, I mentioned to Alexis, partner with Hallmark through our CVS partnership with cards to benefit cancer patients. So partners are very important to us to ensure that when we're partnering with another organization, that we're helping them to meet their objectives, as well from a CSR cause marketing standpoint. So when you look at National Hockey League with us focuses on access to care. What's really important for them right now is promoting hockey as a more diverse sport. And so how are we helping them, make an impact in communities that they're trying to reach by saying, we care about you, we care about health care and cancer survival rates, and those issues that are really important to you as they're looking to go out and extend their brand into more diverse audiences. So we're always looking for what the partner is also looking to achieve and how we, as their nonprofit partner, can help them with that.
So let's take a slight change of tack. We're here in the middle of Miami Art Week. How do you think about bringing together art and purpose in what you do? Do you want to start?
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking about this as we talked about when we were looking at coming down, and obviously I work on the sports side, but when I started with American Cancer Society, I was very intrigued because we do work with a lot of influencers and talent that cross over beyond sport, and partnered with an artist, John Moody, out of New Orleans. I don't know if anyone's familiar with his work, but it's featured on the Fox TV show Empire, and he's just phenomenal success story, very young artist. And so we created a campaign. It was actually a fundraiser, an auction with Burghes, the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints at the time, where John came in and drew a one-of-a-kind painting of Drew, and they sat down in a health clinic and talked about the importance of survival rates in underserved communities and how this painting was going to go on auction to benefit that. So just one of those ways we've looked to intersect. I think the beauty of sport is sport and entertainment intersect anyway, and art is very closely connected to that. So really fascinated, great to be here, and look forward to learning more about ways that we can create integrated marketing opportunities with sport and art.
I think art is at the center, right? You have to have the data, you have to have all of those things, because that helps to, I like to speak in analogies. So, the baby is born, but the data is all the things, I like this. The data is all the things that helps to keep the baby alive, but the art is the heart, right? And that's the living and breathing. And so much of what resonates particularly for Black and brown communities when engaging comes through in certain mediums, right? And art is one of those. And it also comes through, just like Alexis was saying earlier, just in the storytelling, right? So some of the things that we were learning from some of the younger groups, like the Melanated Millennials and others, just really helped to inform even the way that we're engaging on social, which when you started, I think it was about 2,000 followers. As of today, we're at over 52,000. And so that's in less than 24 months. And that's a testament to the storytelling and the art, right? And so we leaned into some of the insights. We leaned into the things that we were getting back from folks and said, well, how do we really kick this up a notch in the creative? How do we make sure we're telling stories that actually deeply resonate? And so art in the forums that exist here, right, in the mediums within painting and sculpting and things like that, definitely believe there's a relevance, but art on a more macro level, just from a storytelling perspective, is at the heart of so much of what we do, and really engaging. And even I remember some of the early commercials that we would work on for Mahogany. Alexis and I would be on calls, texting back and forth and being like, we gotta fix this, this, and this. Change this, take this color out, take the, change the clothes, just because there were things from an intuitive standpoint that we were like, from a storytelling perspective for this community, have to adjust to better connect with her. And so it's very exciting. We've got a brand anthem actually coming fairly soon too. So it's just exciting to be able to have the more, data and analytics side of the fence plus the art and marrying them together. So.
Yeah, and I came from an iconic brand at Cadillac to a brand that our intellectual property at Hallmark is art and voice and words and the power of storytelling. And so, coming here was inspirational for us, but we also had the opportunity to bring one of our storytellers through creative. Kenya Freeman came as a creative partner with us, and so she was season 16 Project Runway participant, but I think for us it's about partnership. And so when we think about Art Basel and the views and the art and the creativity, that's at the pulse of what we do as a brand. And that's at the heart of, like Sophia mentioned, everything that we do. And so to come here and be inspired, be encouraged, just see artists, Black artists, flourishing and having a platform, I think is just really encouraging for us. And so to also have the opportunity to speak in a way that really brings voice to the storytelling that we have, I think it just continues to excite us as well.
Fantastic. And then last question before we open it up to the audience. So we'll start with you, Sophia. What do you see next for purpose-driven marketing? So 2023 and beyond, what are your predictions?
Honestly, I personally think that purpose-driven marketing is just going to continue to expand, and I don't really think we're going to call it purpose-driven marketing in the future. I think that the idea that purpose and profit are divorced or are separate is not really going to exist. Maybe it won't get there by 2023, but probably by 2025. I think more and more brands, and I think even Vivian from Clorox was saying this on the last panel, where it's more, the pendulum is swinging, right? So we leaned in heavy on performance, looking at data, trying to drive results, all of the things. We got it. Figured a lot of things out. But at the crux of it, when you're selling to people or engaging people, either for profit or for not for profit, you're dealing with people. And people exist, and just as social beings, we gravitate towards community. And it's very hard to have community when you don't have purpose at the root of it. And so I think more and more brands, as they figure out ways in which to engage with consumers across a multitude of different channels, because that's ever expanding, are consistently thinking about all the ways in which they are translating who they say they are and supporting who they say they are and standing by that. And consumers are consistently calling them to task. And so I don't think purpose-driven marketing is going to be a niche. I think it's going to just be the way that brands have to navigate.
Yeah, just to double click on that, I think the other thing is that brands just have to authentically be who they are. You know, we are selling love, cards, hope, care. That is authentically who we are at Hallmark in every different way. And so it doesn't have to be in card form. We can genuinely share that in community, through books, through art, a number of different tools. But that genuine purpose and core of who we are won't change. And I say that because I don't think when we think about purpose-driven marketing and we think about results-oriented marketing and all of that and effectiveness, I think if brands stick to who they are at the core, the products that you provide can be different. The ways in which you communicate can be different with audiences to sell your product. But the core of who you are, that purpose, that is always going to remain the same. And I think the problem with brands is that your purpose and your core is not this, but you try to market that to an audience who says that's not really who you are. And then to Sophia's point, they will call you to the carpet. And so if brands just stick with who they genuinely are, they will be extremely successful, and there's a space for that. I mean, you're talking to brands that have been around over 100 years, there's a space for that. And so really next year, I think it's just about that evolution in the ways in which we're talking to consumers, the ways in which we're engaging, but that true purpose of who we are at Hallmark Mahogany, that really won't change.
Yeah, I would just underscore that point about purpose marketing being marketing, moving forward, and that just being it. And one example I'll give is I had the privilege, honor of sitting on the awards committee in Cannes Lions for the International Festival of Creativity for the Sport Marketing Awards. And we were judging marketing campaigns. We were judging the best of the best marketing campaigns. The top 20 campaigns that bubbled up, 15 of those were connected to purpose and cause. So we weren't judging a purpose-driven marketing, award. We were judging a marketing award. But those that resonated, those that spoke the most authentically to the brand, had purpose woven into it. So it was just a real example to me, to your point, of, this is not going to be a separate category. This is how you're performing if you're really, doing your work as a marketer and reaching your audience in an authentic way.
Amazing. Thank you all. We'll open it up to the audience for questions, I think.
Any questions? Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. This is really fantastic. I was curious, you mentioned that you've done a lot of work on increasing your following, and obviously having the heart, directed at for Hallmark. Was just curious about what platforms you focused on, how the storytelling probably helped to give rise to I think you said from 2,000 to 50-some thousand folks, and maybe some learnings that we might be able to take away.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. absolutely. So we predominantly focus on Instagram. Even in the world of TikTok, which Hallmark proper does exist on, and the ways in which, like Alexis was saying, we're thinking even about influencers, is making sure that we're engaging influencers across a variety of different platforms. But the owned property that currently exists is Hallmark Mahogany, as well as Facebook. So we focused on Instagram, knowing that that's where, just from the research and the insights that we understood, you know, for Hallmark Mahogany, it is predominantly for 30-something years has existed really engaging with Boomer and Gen X women. And we were like, well, we know that there's a long tail opportunity to engage with Millennial and Gen Z. So where is she playing? Where does she exist? A lot of the time she's on Instagram. So that's why we kind of doubled down in that space, and we understood, you know, as big as Meta is, Instagram's not going anywhere anytime soon, so we might as well play in that space. And so that was that. And then when it came to the actual just content development, we pulled from a variety of different things, right? So part of it was just from an intuitive cultural standpoint, what are the things that make the most sense? Like HBCUs are huge within the Black community, and we weren't talking about it on Instagram. Why not? And then to Alexis's point, connecting with the melanated millennials, right? And getting some insights from them and just things that they were seeing because they're digesting on TikTok and on Instagram all of the time. Plus, then we just started to really focus on having the content really exist more within more of a strategic framework. So the way that we've broken down, we've already built it out for 2023. We have our overarching framework from a content perspective for 2023. And then we have a quarterly breakdown. And then from there, each month has like a particular content focus. So each day will have obviously different pieces of content, but there's a broader framework that they ladder up to. So all of our storytelling then ladders up to that. And we're applying that and then translating that now for mahogany.com, right? And so then that way, everything is cohesive. And I think, you know, I think Vivian from Clorox was talking about just content. And just in my past life, when I've spoken to folks like, let's say at a Refinery 29, who are producing content all of the time, they talked about having that structure so that you can leave room for the chaos, because social is chaos, right? So if you have the structure, then now you give yourself room versus everything being chaotic, because it doesn't actually have to be. So.
Yeah, and I think we also, to your point about tactics, what specifically did we do? So one, we had a content calendar that leaned into what's happening in Black culture. So now we celebrate HBCUs, we celebrate fraternities and sororities, we celebrate all of these national lipstick days, all of the things that are relevant to Black women, to our culture. And then we also honor what's happening that may be coming from a place of pain in culture, and just honor those moments. But I mean, just those small tactics grew our audience and brought our awareness with people saying, oh, there's someone behind kind of the curtain that looks like me, that knows my culture, that understands what's happening and how I'm feeling. So we made sure we're really relevant and addressing what's happening in culture. What happened in previous to us coming along was that there wasn't a focused team to look at the Mahogany work and translate it in a way that would be relevant for the consumer. And so that's why we didn't have any growth. But once we got a team in who is engaged, a specific Mahogany team, we could really talk the talk. And that's what's, you know, that genuine connection is what people are looking for really on social, to be part of that conversation.
Yeah, I know the question wasn't toward me, but I could just add to that. I mean, it's such a great point with tapping into what's happening in real time. So as well, right? So when Chadwick Boseman passed away, for example, of colon cancer, the NFL reached out to us and said, what should we say? What can we do? They put out a post about making sure that you're getting screened and following up, and the higher, you know, rates of colon cancer deaths in the African American community, and linked it to our website, cancer.org, for more information. We saw an 800% increase to the website that day from that post from the NFL. So it's leveraging what's happening in real time, working with your partner, and directing people that we've seen be effective as well.
And I think I love that point, because we were thinking about posting the same day, because we had, of course, a Black Panther ornament, but we decided not to, because we didn't want to placate on what's happening, his tragic death and passing, just to say something. So, you know, when you think about this purpose-driven marketing, we always are thinking about the ways in which Black people are going to see see it. It's not about a sale, it's about what happened. And so that increase that she had, because it was very authentic to her brand and what was happening for us as salespeople selling a product, it was inappropriate. And so that's when you need people who are in culture to make sure that it's coming off in a genuine, authentic way, and you're not leveraging, such a tragic event to make money. That would never serves anyone.
It's such a great point. Like, our social listening actually showed Black men, athletes, sports reporters saying, go get your colon cancer screening. Do it in honor of Chadwick Boseman. So we heard the audience talking about it, that it was something that was genuinely important to them, and then we lent, our resources to that conversation.
Hi, ladies. I'm curious about, with Hallmark specifically, if you thought about or if you currently have an on-the-ground strategy, so any experiential or, partnering. We saw Kerr yesterday from Essence, and I'm just curious if, obviously you talked a lot about your social voice, but I'm curious if you guys have thought about, creating moments that are maybe on-site at an HBCU or at an Essence festival where you can reach those consumers in real time.
So absolutely yes, yes, and yes. The first thing that we did was make sure that we found small business owners and suppliers to work with. So it's great to do an activation at Art Basel, at XYZ, at Essence, but it's not so great if you have an audience that's African American and you don't have suppliers who are. So we partnered with a gentleman who does a Black Excellence brunch, and we did an Essence edition. We invited, executives from our staff. We invited community. We typically have a Black Excellence brunch once a quarter, and it is this moment that we can share with brand to really give back to the community and give a voice. The first few were with Tabitha Brown and a number of different intergenerational influencers, but we have also done a number of different events. So you name it, National Museum of African American Music. We kind of kicked off our season last year at that grand opening. We worked with an artist, she's phenomenal, Andrea McKenzie, because we wanted to bring in an artist from the outside. She did an incredible unveiling of a picture to him on the red carpet. And so, yes, we've got a full content lineup of activations and events for 2023, but we also partner with our partners at Hallmark Media to do activations, and so we are part of Enchant, co-conspirators in that. So it's kind of a winter wonderland experience that Hallmark is doing in partnership with them across 10 cities and probably more next year. We're thinking about influencers. As I mentioned, Sylvia Molly, Kenya Freeman is here with us, and so we have what we call Friends of the Brand, because that's really important. But what we don't want to do with Black content creators and artists and influencers is we don't want to just use them one time in one specific commercial and then never see them again. No, it is about the community piece that Sophia mentioned, and how can we build this ongoing relationship so when they're somewhere and they need, Kenya just did a fitting for women across Atlanta, so we provided cards, support, and contacts for that, and then we have a partnership with her going through the end of next year. It is, how can we build community with African American men and women to support them, their small businesses, to support a bigger ecosystem, to really bring, it's DEI, but it's really, how can we bring equity to Black and brown communities and Black and brown people so that they can sustain their livelihood in this era where there is a voice and vision to support the community? How can we make sure we're really putting money in their pockets to support their families? And that, to me, is really personally important, but also it aligns with what we're doing at Hallmark Mahogany as well. Yeah.
Hi, I have a question. Catherine Henry from Media Monks. I'm curious about your thinking around community in new metaverse Web3 spaces, particularly, as we know, Twitter, Black culture really ignited, is famous for igniting, the conversation and the culture in Twitter. So what about metaverse spaces? What are your plans there?
So personally, definitely fascinated by the space of metaverse and Web3 and virtual reality, augmented reality, and what all of that looks like. And also, working with Hallmark Mahogany and just my past life, I've learned to pace myself, right? When it comes to working with brands, I'm like, we could be here, and they're like, we're not ready. So when I think about, we talk about this all the time, for Hallmark Mahogany, the first foundation, and kind of what Alexis was just talking about from an experiential standpoint, was just really last year was all about amplifying the brand, right? It's been around for almost 40 years, but there wasn't necessarily a dedicated team working on it on a concerted basis, on a consistent basis. And so it was just, let's get out there. We're at events, we're growing our social, we're doing all of those things, while simultaneously laddering up for this year, which was, all right, we got to build this website, right? So we've got the first layer. Again, I'm going back to my analogies. We're building a cake, right? We're baking a cake. You put the first layer down, then you put the next layer. Now we've got the .com, it's built. We've got the website launched. We have our emails on the retention side of the fence, as well as acquisition running, paid, all of these other things getting built on top of it. Then as we're continuing to build the brand, and I think someone was saying this a little bit earlier, and gaining those insights from her directly, more readily from the .com space, as well as what we're getting for brick and mortar, then definitely, to me, there's opportunity to expand the brand more in that space. Just what I have seen in past life, trying to do too many things at once nullifies everything. So instead it's, well, what's the goal for 2021? Then what's the goal for 2022? 2023 is, okay, so we've built all of this, now let's make sure it's viable. 2024 then is, okay, now that we see it's viable, God willing, right? Now that we see it's viable, now where else do we want to play? How can we expand the brand? Being at Art Basel is one such opportunity, right? Because there's those things happening across various mediums. But that, to me, is really where the opportunity is. So for sure, there's an opportunity, but if we play too early before we're ready to actually sustain it, it won't work. So.
All right. Thank you, guys. That was great.